Up next in the broadcast, investigators believe that North Korea is the owner of unmanned drones that crashed near the inner Korean border, and it's also believed that the devices were used for spying activities. Stronger claims to Korea's Dokdo Island and doubts over a key wartime sexual slavery statement have increased suspicions over Japan's sincerity. And a deadly 8.2 magnitude earthquake strikes off the Chilean coast, creating a tsunami and prompting evacuations. Primetime News begins now.
Good evening to our viewers in Korea, and hello to those of you who are watching from around the world. It's Wednesday, April 2nd here in Seoul. I'm Yoo Ji-hye.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin this evening with evidence of possible spying by North Korea through the use of drones. The South Korean military has tentatively verified that 2 flying devices found near the inner Korean border came from the communist state.
The unidentified vehicles are likely to have taken photos of capital Seoul and even the presidential office. Our Kim Young-gil has more.
Early investigations show the unmanned drone that crashed into a South Korean border island on Monday is from North Korea. The presidential office of Cheongwade presumes the unmanned vehicle to be from the north, as it was found after North Korea fired scores of artillery shells in the waters south of the northern limit line as part of a live-fire military drill. South Korea's defense ministry is continuing its analysis of the drone and is devising contingency plans to shore up the country's air defense. Military and intelligence officials are known to have concluded that the drones were assembled and developed in North Korea for reconnaissance purposes and was flown in from the north. The light blue drone was found on Baekneungdo Island just south of the disputed Western Sea border between the two Koreas. The drone is 183 centimeters long, almost 2.5 meters wide, and weighs around 12.7 kilograms. There was also a small digital camera installed on its body.
Drones can be used for reconnaissance missions with cameras attached. If the unmanned vehicle is loaded with explosives, it can also be used to bomb targets.
U.S. experts analyzed several photos of the drone's wreckage that were published in South Korean media and said the drone appears to be well past its prime and could even be considered an antique. Military and intelligence authorities say the unmanned vehicle is known to be similar to another drone that was collected from Paju City in Gyeonggi-do Province, south of the demilitarized zone on March 24th. South Korea's military intelligence authorities are collaborating on the investigation. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
A key U.S. official has blamed North Korea's big brother, China, for sticking to policies that have been unsuccessful in dealing with North Korea.
The statement comes amid more saber-rattling by Pyongyang against Washington. Our Yu Lian reports.
The United States top point man on Asia says China is still struggling to set a clear priority in terms of its strategy towards North Korea. Speaking during a conference call hosted by the Asia Society, Daniel Russell, the Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs, laid out 2 contradicting imperatives faced by Beijing. One is the maintenance of stability on its border, and the other, ending North Korea's quest for nuclear weapons capability. He added that while China continues to hold on to its coaxing tactics towards Pyongyang that proved to be futile, he said Chinese leaders are starting to realize that they need to put China's own national security interest in ending the nuclear program above anything else. The veteran diplomat then urged Pyongyang's traditional ally to take further steps to convince North Korea towards denuclearization. The comments come as North Korea continues to ramp up its anti-U.S. rhetoric. Speaking in front of the commanders of the North Korean People's Army on Tuesday, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un accused the United States of ignoring its good intentions and generosity, and of trying instead to annihilate and isolate the country and crush it by using military force. Kim added he would not accept the U.S. policy towards his country and demolish it completely. Pundits expect Pyongyang to carry out more provocations this month as it's set to celebrate the birthday of late national founder Kim Il-sung and the foundation of the North Korean military. U.S. President Barack Obama is also set to visit South Korea at the end of the month. Yurian, Arirang News.
In a move sure to worsen already strained Korea-Japan relations, the Japanese government is expected to bolster its territorial claims in a review of its school textbooks this week.
And there are also new whispers that the Abe administration may backtrack on its landmark apology to the victims of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement. Our Hwang Sung-hee tells us more.
Diplomatic sources in Seoul said Wednesday that Japan's education ministry will convene a meeting on Friday to release the screening results of its elementary school textbooks. The revised versions are expected to carry stronger claims over Korea's Dokdo Island. The island, which is physically closer to Korea in the body of water that divides the Korean peninsula and Japan, has long been a thorn in bilateral relations. The Japanese government initially planned to unveil the new textbooks last month, but postponed it ahead of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's first official meeting with President Park Geun-hye in The Hague to demonstrate Japan's sincerity to mend ties with Korea. But that sincerity is now once again in question. Ahead of his meeting with President Park, Abe pledged to uphold a landmark apology to victims of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement. But Japanese opposition lawmaker Tatsuki Eda said at a seminar in Washington, D.C. Tuesday that the Abe administration still intends to review the Kono statement and issue a revised version sometime next year. Eda, who expressed concern about the move, added the new statement would contain Japan's official stance on war and draw international attention. The Japanese government reiterated Tuesday it does not plan on revising the existing apology, but that it will verify the way in which the statement was composed. While Korea and Japan were expected to hold working-level talks on the so-called comfort women issue this month, the chances of such a meeting taking place now appear slim. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
A recent UN report warns that climate change damage is already occurring all across the world and that countries are ill-prepared to deal with the potentially immense impact.
Our Park Ji-won joins us in the studio to tell us more about what is being called the most comprehensive assessment of the impacts of climate change. Welcome to the studio.
Hi guys, the report from the Intergovernmental Climate Change, or IPCC says climate change is already affecting people, societies, and ecosystems throughout the entire world, and it identifies looming risks. For example, it says rising sea levels could have devastating effects on low-lying coastal areas, and the extreme weather events could lead to breakdowns in infrastructure networks such as electricity and water supply systems. There could be food insecurity, insufficient access to drinking and irrigation water, and a general loss of coastal ecosystems and biodiversity. The report also notes that the challenges will be especially pronounced for the least developed countries and vulnerable communities. And looking at the effect on overall temperatures of the Earth over the next century, the report points out two very different trajectories. If we take appropriate preventive measures on the right time, the temperatures will rise only within the 2 degrees Celsius by 2100. However, if we fail to restrict gas emissions, temperatures could rise to more than 4 degrees.
Well, that's certainly very alarming. Well, taking a more local angle, how will climate change affect us here in the Northeast Asian region?
Yeah, to answer that question, let's take a look at a map for a better idea about the impact of climate change. The symbols on the map represents dangers posed to each geographic area. Well, Asia, for example, in general, is looking at the 3 major risk factors. The tree-shaped mark, for example, represents a threat to terrestrial ecosystems like deforestation or a distribution shift of plants and animal species in the region. And the water drop symbols, as you can see in the north-central China, show that climate change is leading to reduced soil moisture and surface water degradation. However, we have to note that this map is drawn out based on previous studies. So if there's no mark in some areas, it doesn't mean that the region is safe from the impact of climate change. It's just that there hasn't been enough data to make an accurate assessment.
Right, quite a blunt and pessimistic assessment from a layman's point of view, but what is experts' take on the findings of the UN report?
So I interviewed two researchers who recently went to the IPCC session in Yokohama. So let's listen to what they had to say.
While the previous report in 2007 made clear that the risk from climate change exists, this fifth assessment report identifies specific risk factors posed by climate change and how much room is left for the human race to adapt to such risks.
In terms of public health, this fifth report says with a high level of confidence that climate change aggravates already existing health problems. The health risks stemming from climate change now require national level solutions, since climate change poses health risks beyond just the individual level.
So, Jiyoon, what is the Korean government doing to address some of these challenges?
Well, according to experts, the Korean government is ambitiously partaking in global efforts to reduce these, to address this issue. Let's take a look.
The government has voluntarily set the goal of reducing the nation's greenhouse gas emissions by 30% compared to the business as usual scenario by 2020. I think the goal looks far-fetched. Korea, in fact, is the fastest emission-growing country among the OECD member states.
And what's important to note is that this report clearly shows that now is the time to make the right moves to reduce the impacts and possible risk factors by climate change. And the decisions and pathways that the global community take from now on can change the future of the Earth.
All right, thank you very much, Jiwon, for that report.
Everything goes according to plan. Korea will have a leaner fighting.
Your gateway to the day's biggest stories in Korea and around the world. Breaking news, the hottest interviews, and a whole lot more. Join Arirang's Sean Lim and Yoo Ji-hye from the heart of Seoul. Primetime News, weeknights, live at 10 on Arirang TV.
Next general elections.
Korea's benchmark Kospi surpassed the 2,000 mark at one point for the first time this year, backed by assurances about solid economic data from here and abroad. Although the market closed in 1997 just below the 2,000 level, it gained 5.25 points, the highest in 3 months, while the tech-heavy Kosdaq gained 8.5 points to over 557. Analysts say shares in the coming weeks will be affected by a number of factors, one of them being a Samsung Electronics performance report that will be released next week. The U.S. jobs report coming this Friday is another. On the foreign exchange counter, the Korean currency ended at 1,057 won against the greenback. South Korea and the United Kingdom have agreed to enhance their bilateral cooperation in the financial sector. During talks in London, the two sides also discussed ways to finance funding for Korea's reunification when it happens. Our Song Ji-sun has the details.
Senior financial officials from South Korea and the United Kingdom gathered in London Tuesday to strengthen the two countries' financial ties. Chaired by the chief of Korea's Financial Services Commission, Shin Jae-yoon, and Lord Mayor of the City of London, Fiona Wolf, officials from Seoul also suggested channeling loans from international financial institutions to help North Korea prepping for reunification in the future.
It's crucial to secure enough funding for the construction of highways, ports, factories, and energy infrastructure in North Korea when the two Koreas unite. We need cooperation for the international financial community to ask for loans for those projects.
The forum was a follow-up to President Park Geun-hye's state visit to Britain last year. The two countries also pledged to seek new investment opportunities by jointly exploring the Asian and African markets,
providing us with the opportunity to share best practice and also seek to consider how we can cooperate on financing infrastructure into third countries.
Both sides also share their views on consumer financial protection and financial supervision, along with turning Seoul into a trading hub for Chinese yuan to take full advantage of Korea's geographical location. 송지선, Arirang News.
When it comes to innovative ideas, Korea's Electronics and Telecommunications Research Institute is without competition. For the third straight year, the institute was ranked the world's #1 innovation center by a U.S.-based research institute. Our Na Hyung-kyung tells us more about the top accolade.
One of the world's leading business patent databases, IPIQ, says Korea's Electronics and Telecommunications Research Institute has maintained its status as the #1 innovation center in the world. That's among some 300 government agencies, institutions, and universities around the globe, assessed by the IPIQ for their innovation drive and ability to collaborate with other organizations.
They've outperformed the competition on developing patents around the hottest technologies in the space right now. We call it innovation cycle time, and ETRI is winning in this area by producing patents in some of the most relevant, hottest sectors.
The state-run ETRI, based in Daejeon, took the top spot this year with a patent count of nearly 900. That total is 85% higher than that of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the second-best organization on the scorecard. Aside from ETRI, the only non-American organization in the top 10 was Taiwan's Industrial Technology Research Institute. The ETRI has earned patent royalties totaling around 160 billion won, or roughly $150 million over the past 5 years, chief among them being patents related to the 3G mobile telecommunications technology. The Science and ICT Ministry says ETRI's achievements are a testimony to Korea's information and communications technology prowess and proof that the country can succeed in building a creative economy, President Park Geun-hye's key administrative goal. A government official added that it will continue to help the institute focus more on the quality of Korea's patents from now on. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
Let's check on some of the stories making headlines on the global front, from the massive earthquake off the coast of Chile to the latest development on the Ukraine crisis. We go live to our Paul Lee at the News Center.
So, Paul, let's start with the quake that shook South America and the subsequent tsunami. How bad is the situation over there?
Well, at least 5 people have died and tens of thousands of others have been displaced after the initial 8.2 magnitude earthquake hit Tuesday evening. However, all tsunami warnings, alerts, and watches for Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, and Panama have been lifted. For more on the natural disaster, our Shin Se-min reports.
Please just help us. Please pray for Erika.
It was very strong. It was very long. Everything moved. All we could do was pray with our daughter.
A magnitude 8.2 earthquake struck off the coast of northern Chile Tuesday evening local time, causing landslides and prompting authorities to issue a tsunami warning that forced those in coastal areas to evacuate. The U.S. Geographical Survey said the quake centered 98 kilometers northwest of the Chilean mining port of Iquique, 20 kilometers deep in the Pacific Ocean at 8:46 p.m. Tuesday. The Chilean president has declared 3 northern regions hit by the quake as disaster areas. Waves of up to 2.1 meters were reported earlier in some areas. And power is still out for thousands of local residents in Chile, and some roads have been cut off due to landslides. In the hours since the earthquake, multiple aftershocks have rattled the region, including at least one in the magnitude 6 range. Asia may also feel the effects, as Japan's meteorological agency warned that high waves triggered by the quake in Chile could reach Japan by early tomorrow morning. Here in Korea, the agency expects that the eastern coastal regions will see the effects Thursday morning and the southern and western coasts in the afternoon. That said, the Japanese agency doesn't yet know how big the waves will be. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
And speaking of natural disasters, let's now turn to Japan, which is still recovering from the deadly earthquake and tsunami more than 3 years ago. For the first time since the Fukushima nuclear meltdown, Japanese authorities have finally given the all-clear for some residents of the affected area to return home. The evacuation order for the small village of Miyakoji was lifted on Monday, local time. The area is located some 20 kilometers away from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. It's a major milestone for the some 355 residents of the area. The 2011 crisis had forced more than 160,000 people residing near the Fukushima plant to evacuate. Around a third of them are still living in temporary housing as Japan continues to complete decontamination work of the radioactive fallout. And turning to the crisis in Ukraine, NATO foreign ministers have decided to suspend all civilian and military cooperation with Russia in response to its annexation of the Ukrainian peninsula of Crimea. A joint statement by 28-member alliance said dialogue could continue through the NATO-Russian Council in order to find a way out of the crisis. NATO chief Anos Fogh Rasmussen called the takeover of Crimea the gravest threat to European security of a generation. Rasmussen also rejected earlier reports that a battalion of Russian troops had been pulled back from the eastern Ukrainian border. Meanwhile, in an interview with CNN, World Bank chief Jim Yong Kim says he predicts Russia's current growth forecast of 1.1% this year could fall as low as -2% in the face of economic sanctions. That wraps up our look at international stories making headlines around the world. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello and welcome to Primetime Sports. I'm Stephen Chen. Now starting with golf, Tiger Woods has long been chasing Jack Nicklaus and his 18 major titles, and with 14 himself, it seems like just a matter of time. But it seems like time isn't the issue here, his body is. Woods announced his withdrawal from the Masters tournament next week after having surgery for a pinched nerve in his back. He'll be sidelined for about 3 to 4 months, which means he'll miss the first 3 majors this year. And it's a huge blow for the 38-year-old who was poised for a Grand Slam after troubles on and off the field kept one out of his grasp since 2008. And staying on the greens and speaking of majors, the LPGA's first Grand Slam, the Kraft Nabisco Championship, opens on Thursday. The world's #1 Park In-bi returns to defend her title, the one that sparked her run of the tour's first 3 majors last year. And the top pros will be there to vie for the trophy and the $300,000 grand prize, with the notable exception of Suzanne Pettersen, who withdrew with a back injury. And moving on to Champions League action, the quarterfinals kicked off with Manchester United facing Bayern Munich and Barcelona taking on Atletico Madrid. Now to start, Man U came up first in the second half, but Bayern's Bastian Schweinsteiger leveled it off minutes later, ending in a draw. Now in the other match, Atletico's Diego netted a wonder strike from 25 yards out, only to be equalized by Barcelona's Neymar later on, and it also ended in a draw. Meanwhile, PSG will take on Chelsea and Real Madrid goes up against Dortmund to wrap up the first leg matches. Now it's game 1 of the KBL Championships. The LG Sakers hosted the Mobis Phoebus in Changwon. Now Mobis starts off ahead, but LG pulls back. It's 36-33. Mobis up at the half. Now LG turns it around in the third as Davon Jefferson goes to work, but Mobis's Moon Tae-young leads his team back in the fourth. He ends with 20 points as Mobis wins 77-74 going into game 2 on Thursday. Now let's end things off with Wednesday's top KBL matchup. The Tusan Bears and Nexen Heroes went toe-to-toe in Mokdong. Now going straight to the second inning, Tusan's Jorge Cantu can do this. It's a solo shot to start the 3-run rally. Now we go on to the top of the 6th. It's 4-2. When Yang Leiji, he leads with a solo homer, it's eventually 7-2 Bears. Now we go on to the next inning. Nexen's Lee Sung-yeol and also Moon Woo-ram hit back-to-back solo shots, making it 7-4 Tusan. And Tusan, they add 2 more to eventually win with a final score of 9-5. And looking at the other games, we have Hanwha defeating Samsung 10-5, LG over SK 8-3, and NC and Kia, they're still at it in the bottom of the 10th, and it's 8-7. That's all I have for now. This has been Stephen Che. I'll see you back here later for more from the world of sports.
Now let's get a check on the weather with our Kim Bo-kyung joining us here in the studio.
Right, Bo-kyung, it was another beautiful and warm day here in the capital, and I hear showers are on its way tomorrow?
That's right. Today, afternoon highs here in Seoul rose to 22 degrees with sunny skies. However, tomorrow looks to be a rainy or cloudy day nationwide. Parts of Gangwon-do province as well as Dokdo will get 5 to 20 millimeters of precipitation, and less than 5 millimeters will fall on the central regions, including Seoul. Otherwise, a pre-heavy snowfall watch has been issued on the mountains of Gangwon-do province, which is forecast to get 2 to 7 centimeters of snow. Taking a look at the current conditions, the central regions will gradually be at the edge of a high-pressure front, which is why clouds are moving in. Keep in mind that tomorrow's rain will come with strong winds, and after this round of spring showers, average daytime highs in most parts of the country will drop to the mid-teens. As for tomorrow's readings, Seoul tops out at 15 degrees, while Gwangju and Busan won't get any rain tomorrow and reach 19. Moving on to other regions, it will be a cloudy day on Jeju, Dokdo, and Mount Kumgang, top out at 13 and 5. Guys.
Thank you, Bo-kyung. And that's our broadcast on this Wednesday night. I'm Yuji Hain, Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.